Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, and today I'm going to be talking about Superman and Lois Season 2, Episode 1. It's called What Lies Beneath. I'd make a joke about the movie What Lies Beneath, but I've never seen it, so I can't. So I'm starting off in an awkward place here. So full spoilers for the episode, as always. Obviously, Season 1 was by and large very good. Outshone a lot of the CW stuff from the previous few years. I was looking forward to Season 2. So it's a shame that I have to start this by saying I didn't like this episode very much. Not that it's irredeemable. Not that there's not a couple of nice little moments or nice threads that could become something great, but there was a lot of kind of clunky drama in this episode that is very CW-esque, I suppose, if you want to put it into a phrase. We have the sort of the typical time jump that you get on a network show, especially when you've got characters who are attending school. You tend to have this like summer break kind of vibe, which is a little bit weird in this case because the show did not air like in the regular TV season, which kind of mirrors the school time. It kind of it's we're starting this in January, but we're talking about end of summer camp, kids getting back to school kind of thing. But that's not a big deal in of itself, but. We used that for a few different things, and there's a lot of drama on this episode that felt just one of the things that I praised a lot last season, one of the things that I praised a lot in Season 1 was how it circumvented doing the awkward nonsensical CW drama that was there to kind of prolong story. It was there to kind of like, a character will keep a secret because that'll cause tension and we can have that tension ride out for X amount of time. And we'll have characters overreact to something or blah 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 blah. It tended to, even if it introduced a plot thread that felt like it might turn into that, it tended to resolve it in a kind of a mature way, or at least a way that made sense, in a timely fashion that made sense, in one episode or whatever. And it would feel like, oh, it's actually dealing with these plot beats in a fairly sensible way. There was a couple of things in this episode that felt not like that, particularly the resolution to Lois and Natalie. I felt like I didn't really feel like the scene where they finally sat down together. Lois's speech to convince Natalie that they should be in each other's lives and they should be there for each other and become friends. I don't really think Lois said anything that kind of convinced me that she was going to like sway Natalie over. Like, Natalie was very accusatory and accused her of just wanting to make herself feel better. I don't really think anything Lois said after that point felt like it should convince Natalie that they should. But she started like tearing up and she said okay, and it was just kind of like, okay, now that's fixed. Which I'm glad that it's fixed, because the drama of the episode with Lois like snapping at everyone was mostly kind of tedious to get through. Lois fighting with Clark wasn't particularly fun. Lois getting angry at the boys wasn't particularly great. The only scene that I kind of liked with Lois and the boys in this episode was probably with Jordan, when Jordan came home finally and she snapped a little bit because he wouldn't really open up about what happened with Sarah that day. I liked that scene a little bit because it did show a little bit of self-awareness where she kind of realized she was going too far. Like, she knew she was being moody and snappy, and seemed to regret it instantly, and that showed me a bit more nuance from the character, I guess, a bit more nuance in the writing. There was like, oh no, like, she's aware she's acting just off. She knows she's not acting correctly, and that's cool, that's fine. But a lot of this stuff wasn't particularly fun. And maybe fun's not the right word, because drama if it's well built, drama like this shouldn't be fun. Even if it's done well, it should feel engaging. It should feel like you understand where every character in the scene is coming from. You should want a resolution, but you understand why they can't reach a resolution. And I don't think I ever quite felt that. It was very much just typical. Lois is really feeling weird about the Natalie thing, about this daughter that's not really hers but kind of is, from another world. And every time Clark tries to talk to her about it, she just snaps at him and it becomes a fight. And that is not fun to watch. It's not engrossing to watch. It doesn't make me side with, not that I should side with a character, but it actively makes me not side with Lois, right, in a way that it feels like bad writing. I'm not siding with her because like she's reached a a terrible point where she's making the wrong choice. It's just, it's written this way so that the drama is still here, and the fact that this is meant to have been going on for 3 months during the time skip, and that she's still like this, and it's only been resolved now. I guess that's a quick way of saying, oh, this was going to take months to sort out, but of course we get to have a time skip and we can just come in at the end. But it feels a bit blunt. It feels like it's not really exploring the weirdness of how she feels. It's just a sore subject that she gets mad at when it's brought up, and then it doesn't really, like, I thought maybe like what she was going to say to convince Natalie at the end was like bringing up her own pregnancy, bringing up the miscarriage, and maybe that would not like make Natalie feel like, oh, she is kind of my mother, like she was going to have a Natalie, but more just that she would relate to her because they'd both lost a version of each other, and that could maybe be the, you know, the bonding point where they see eye to eye on something. Like I thought maybe that's where it was going, but she never brought that up. She just kind of says we should be in each other's lives and had a tear, and then Natalie had a tear, and then that was it. It didn't really feel like it accomplished anything in the scene, except that it then the show told us, oh no, now they're going to make this work, and they're going to be back in the farm with everyone now, and okay. Which is, and it's a problem because, you know, one of the best things about season 1 was the character drama, because it was well handled, and Lois in particular had some really great stuff, and some of that great stuff was to do with the discovery of this miscarriage and all that, all those threads that came with that. And I think it hurts a little bit that it's been mishandled in this first episode of season 2, but it also hurts the introduction of Natalie, who, it's very hard to like latch on to this character in this episode because all she is a angry plot device. Effectively, she is a character who is there to repeat the same thing a few times about it, being mad that it's not her world, but being mad clearly that Superman is like a friend here, mad at her dad for that. The thing that particularly bugged me though is that it got specifically repetitious, but not just the fact that it repeated its point, it got repetitious in a way that made me mad at the character, because before she goes to her first day at school, and this was a good thing to bring up, you know, her dad John Henry says, you know, remember that, you know, your friends from your world, you know, he names a couple of people that's her best friends, and says you're going to see them at this school, which really made me think she should go to a different school where it's not going to be an issue. And he does kind of suggest that, but whatever, they're doing it. But he says they're not your best friends. They don't know you. They're not the same. Which is fine. I thought that was a great point to bring up. But later on in the episode, when she comes out of the school and she's actually ditched class, she wasn't there the whole day. And when he asks, like, you know, what happened, she says, oh, I looked right at so-and-so, my friend, and she looked like through me like she didn't know me. And I'm like, you specifically talked about this exactly happening before you went in. And I get that it's one thing to talk about it and then actually experience it, and maybe it would, you know, hit a way you maybe weren't prepared for. It ultimately just amounts to her yelling about this in this scene. It felt annoying as a viewer because we'd already brought this up, so it didn't, like, if they hadn't brought this up earlier and then it came up now, it wouldn't be annoying. It would be like, okay, that's an interesting idea, that it's not just her mother, now there's other characters she's running into that she should know, that should know her, but they don't, and that makes her feel alien. It makes her feel like she's unnoticed. It makes her feel like she has no one except her father here, and she doesn't belong. And the idea that she feels like she doesn't belong is a really interesting theme to explore. You could use that as a metaphor for a lot of things. But in this episode, it just kind of like is this repetitive thing. It's just, honestly, this is, I feel bad saying this, but I think this episode is particularly poor when it comes to its female characters. I think this character, Natalie, Lois, and even Sarah, to an extent, another character who I really liked last season, all feel like they're written in this episode to just create drama, which feels just kind of unpleasant. You know, you have Lois just not talking to Clark. You have Natalie just kind of repeating the same complaint over. Like, you know, the idea that we jump into her and our first introduction to her is her just complaining the entire time. And it's not that the complaints are completely unjust. I get why she's upset. I get why this world feels like a shithole to her, and why everything isn't the way it was in our own world. but ultimately there's nothing in this episode. There's not really an arc. Like I say, I don't really believe the speech that Lois gives her later. So she just kind of complains until she cries. And it doesn't really feel like... There's nothing to latch onto in the character other than conceptually that she obviously would feel bad because she's now away from everyone she ever knew. But we don't actually get to see her. Like, this is the problem. We hear her talk about seeing this person at school, but we don't get to see that moment. We don't get to see her react to that. We don't get to see a moment of her being vulnerable where we can latch onto her and feel empathy for her. We just hear her complain about it after the fact. And that makes it really difficult to just engage with in any way, shape, or form. So that was really frustrating. Sarah, like, the red flag I got at the start of this episode. So Sarah comes back from summer camp, which she apparently went to, and they're happy to see her, her parents, that is. And Jordan's all excited that she's coming back, and yada yada yada. And Sarah, very quickly, when her parents say, "Oh, everyone's excited to see your best friend," Jordan's excited to see you, immediately Sarah's body language drops. And then she kind of like just gets awkward about it a little bit, and immediately it's like, oh my god, did she meet like a guy at summer camp? Is that what we're doing here? And it's not that you can't do a plot where we go down that path with these characters. It's a bit of a shame given that their relationship was one of the sweetest things about season 1, and TV shows like are insistent in not having couples stay together. And obviously they're teenagers, so I mean it's more likely that they will break up. But TV shows are particularly notably terrible for just having to break up couples because they don't know how to do drama without doing that. So it's a trope. It's stuck out as a trope, especially the idea that we've jumped time between seasons and it's like, oh, I met a guy over the summer, so everything we built up last season is kind of done. It's just kind of frustrating again as a viewer for that kind of plot thread. Now, admittedly, it never actually reveals that in the episode, so that might not have happened. But it definitely feels like it did, and even if it isn't, and even if it's just that she's kind of starting to feel weird about Jordan and that she's not as committed to this idea anymore. Joe, the funniest thing about this plot is that I ended up... this is going to sound insane. For anyone who heard me talk about season 1, this is going to blow your mind. But I actually think Kyle might be the best character in this episode. Kyle, who was a complete shithead all last season. Like, in fact, I mean, Sarah sums it up. Like, do you know what? To give the Sarah plot some credit, I do actually think it ends in a much better place than it starts. I didn't really like all the awkwardness with Jordan. I didn't like the obvious, like, something's going on, but I'm not telling him, so I'm just going to make the oh, I'm feeling not well, I got cramps, the excuse, right? And then she's, like, not really wanting to answer his texts. Sure, on a personal level, this opens some wounds. Not gonna lie, but on a level of just being engaged with this relationship and rooting for them in season 1, this is just a really frustrating thing. And it's really frustrating because in season 1, you're not just rooting from one side. You're not just rooting for Jordan to get the girl. It's not this one-sided, like, old school, kind of sexist, like, storytelling, like, lens, right? In season 1, you like both characters, and you kind of root for the relationship because you think they work together and they both make each other happy, and it's kind of sweet. So it's really frustrating to go away for the break, come back to season 2, and one of them all of a sudden is just being really weird about it, when, like, her reactions to Jordan and the way she seemed to enjoy interacting with Jordan last season is partly what made it good. So that's really frustrating. Because you're kind of then using her, just changing her mind as a plot device for drama. But what I will say is that when she's back at the house afterwards and she's talking to Kyle, and so Kyle throughout the episode was a bit better. Don't get me wrong, he was getting a little jealous about the new, like, guy running for mayor that Lana's working with. But to give it, this is weird, I can't believe I'm praising this, but to give it some credit, I do feel like the point of that little moment of, like, potential jealousy that he has is really just there for Clark to recognize, so that when he talks to Lana about, like, what might be going on with her, it's almost like it's using Lana and Kyle, who were the drama couple from season 1, and using them as an example this episode to make to at least to make Clark realize, and like, because the what's going on with him and that he has to deal with these things and blah 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 blah, because the drama with Lana and Kyle, and admittedly it may come back up again. Kyle was notorious last season for like 180 and every time you thought he was better, but at least by the end of this episode it feels like no, it's okay, he's fine with it. Like, yeah, he had a moment of a little bit of maybe jealousy and that he's been ignored and neglected, but you know, she went out of her way, Lana that is, to at the end of the episode to make it clear, no, like, you're still my husband, I'm still in love, and, you know, don't take this as anything else, and they get kissy. And I think that's kind of the point, is that the drama couple were able to recognize and sort of nip this in the bud before it became something, where the other characters maybe potentially might not. I mean, they kind of do fix it. Like, that's the thing. Like, Lois and Clark's thing is kind of also seems to be fixed by the end of the episode, but it was like, I don't know, like them using that as a narrative device to sort of help inform the other relationship stuff in a way where we can use this as an example now because of everything they did go through in season 1, for better or worse, is kind of an interesting technique. But like Kyle, when he was trying to be nice to Clark and like, you know, did you have a fight with Lois? He seemed like he genuinely was trying to like help, so he seemed more likable on a whim, at least, at that. But the scene with Sarah is the one that I actually quite liked. You know, he's working on the car, she comes in, and he does the protective dad thing because she's acting a little bit, you know, quiet, and he's like, wait, did he get handsy with you? And, you know, the typical dad behavior. And she's like, no, he's, you know, like, it makes it clear, no, Jordan's not that. But he actually just very quickly, so once, it's like he had to rule it out. As a dad who wants to protect his daughter, he has to rule that out first. But as soon as he gets past that, the son of a bitch actually gets it. He just goes, oh, it was too much. Like, he's overwhelming you. He's being, you know, a bit clingy perhaps, or whatever. And she's like, huh, yes, kinda. You're onto something here, Kyle. Tell me more. And Kyle proceeds to, as Sarah herself puts it, give some pretty good advice. Or actually, I think the line was not terrible advice, to which then he cracked a joke. That's the bar I'm trying to set as a father. Which honestly was a funny line. So we're living in a bizarre world, because I actually think Kyle came out of this episode looking like the best written character. It was almost like all of the shit he went through and all the crappy writing he had in season 1, it's like we're atoning for it now, but we have to like put everyone else through forced drama, at least for this pilot. Well, not pilot, you know, that's, I misspoke, but you know, the premiere of season 2. So I'm hoping that a lot of these problems aren't going to be consistent. I'm hoping that they are, like, these perceived red flags of how they're writing the drama in this episode. I do hope that that is something that isn't actually going to go forward, and it's just a clunky premiere because they had to sort of set up and resolve all these things. So there's all these like narrative shortcuts taken in the drama, and it just feels kind of unfulfilling because of that. There are little moments, you know, like Jonathan caught with his, I think, new girlfriend, because I don't recognize her. You know, with his top off, home alone by Lois. The scene was, you know, was all right on its own. I think Jonathan's reaction to, like, afterwards when he's looking for his shirt was kind of amusing. But everything that came from that, with like Clark having to talk to them and them kind of try to poke fun at him for it, that was all good stuff. That all felt like the characters from season 1. That felt like the stuff that I liked. And yeah, so like I say, I think it's some forced drama in this episode, and I think it's not necessarily intentional, but it's kind of a shame that all the forced drama seems to be writing of 3 of the core female characters on the show, that being Lois, Sarah, and now Natalie. It felt like it was doing a disservice to all of their characters just to create the drama that we had in the episode, just so that the men who were opposite them could feel worried or angry or confused or whatever. Yeah, which again is why I think Lana and Kyle come out looking all right, because Lana's not being like, Lana's just doing something she cares about, and she's not being unreasonable in any way, shape, or form, and it's perfectly fine. And she's just really passionate about it, and you get why Kyle might get a little insecure, which is why when Kyle says to Sarah, actually says, you know, he's a little insecure because he's batting above his league. But like that makes you the alpha, that makes you set the tone and all that sort of thing, and just be honest with him. And it almost kind of felt like he was acknowledging that maybe my wife is the alpha, and that's okay. You know, it felt like he was talking about himself a little bit, and that's perfectly fine. He always thought he was the alpha, and maybe part of his dickishness up until this point was him accepting that he wasn't. I don't know. But whatever it is, that their relationship surprisingly came out the healthiest feeling of this entire episode. Obviously, what I've not talked about yet is the actual Superman plot and the action and stuff. I did like the submarine rescue. It was a fun scene. It looked good. It's teasing these weird headache moments, like Superman's hearing something that's painful, which you think maybe related to the sub, but you're like, okay, it's not that, and then there's more stuff later. Well, I mean, I'm not really sure how to feel about where it's going. I will say what I really like is the idea that the US forces or government are not cool with Superman equally helping other nations. The idea that he saved a North Korean sub because there was people that needed saving. They were just, they were dying, and he was going to save them because he's Superman. And he does not pledge allegiance to a specific country. He, as he says, he gave himself to the world already. And he's not going to pick a side, and he's going to stay out of the geopolitics, as he puts it, which is all good stuff. And this new guy who's replaced Sam for now, he gets pissy about it. He's like, no, you have to put America first. And I do like that this attitude of you have to put America first is definitely the villainous side of this. That feels like a nice thing to explore. And it is actually something that I think is more interesting to explore in a show that is mostly created by Americans, because I do think that so it's very easy for someone outside of US to sort of like see that as villainous. I think it's a really interesting thing to have Americans themselves who want to explore the morality of that statement and sort of like use Superman as no, Superman's for everyone. It can't just be about us first. Got mine, screw you, we're the best. It has to be more than that. We have to care about everyone. So I'm intrigued by that theme popping up. The rest of the plot, though, which is... And we get some cool Superman saving stuff as well. So obviously the submarine happened, that was neat. And it felt different enough from when it happened on Supergirl, when she picked up a submarine, that it felt distinct, so that's nice. We had the earthquake later on, which the water tower was falling over, and he freezes it all, so we get this kind of like half fallen over but frozen, ice coming out of it. It looked neat. And then the big... the big truck at the quarry that falls off the top, and he catches that. But so all that stuff, fun enough, superhero shenanigans. But the actual stuff that it sets up towards the end is quite interesting. So military guy's got a team of people. I actually was very relieved, because for a moment I thought there was more just straight up Kryptonians, and I was kind of like ready to roll my eyes, because we just did that in season 1. We just did other like super powered Kryptonians running around, even if like some of them were Kryptonians who possessed humans, it was same thing. So I was happy, because he sees this glimpse of these two people in like S emblems and helping the miners, and I was very relieved that it turned out to be no, these are people from Earth the government are training to be kind of a replacement for Superman, to be their own team of, I think he calls them gifted, which might imply that they are metahumans or have abilities of some kind. So it certainly looks like they have strength based on the quarry scene. So I think that's an interesting thing to set up. Again, playing into everything else, it's hard not to think of Reign of the Superman, or other stories where villains have tried to like build their own team, or even not even villains, but just like the government. Wales does also a villain on the loose, and like see how those plot elements intersect. And Reign of the Superman is a very notable thing to bring up, given what the very end of the episode seems to tease. Because Reign of the Superman, if you don't know, was basically a team of... I mean, not even a team. There were like 4 individual characters who tried to replace Superman. One of whom was Steel. One of whom was John Henry, funnily enough. But they tried to replace Superman after Superman died at the hands of Doomsday. And this ending of the episode definitely feels like it's doing Doomsday. Like the hand punching out the rock deep down in a cave somewhere is very start of Death to Superman. I'm not necessarily saying that they're going to kill Superman. It would be, I mean, I feel like I've seen it enough at this point. We got the terrible Zack Snyder version. We got the pretty good animated version. I don't know if I need to see Superman versus Doomsday play out the same way again. I don't know if I need to see Doomsday in general for a while, but if they're doing Doomsday, they're doing Doomsday. This is going to be their version, their take. That's fine. I got the impression actually because like because that thing where Clark gets like a headache from the sound happens a couple of times. My first thought was that it was something the government was doing to try and like distract him, because it seemed to happen when he tried to help the submarine, and then again it happened, and it's what allowed the new super kids, for lack of a better term, to get away from the quarry. Because he kind of goes into the headache, and then they're just gone by the time he like snaps out of it. So I was thinking it was maybe like a specific weapon targeted at him to like help like try and stop him from doing things that they don't want him doing or whatever. But then with the ending, and he sort of has like a little moment again, and then we get introduced to the hand coming out of the cave wall. I kind of felt like maybe it was more, maybe something to do with Doomsday, like some sort of frequency that Doomsday's like awakening is giving off, and that's what it is. So I mean, we'll see what way it goes. So yeah, didn't love this episode. I thought a lot of the character drama this episode felt very convenient and forced, and had characters just being moody or just being upset without really showing us enough to really engage with why they feel that way. It's all just kind of broad strokes, and we're just told verbally how they feel. And I think that's why, like, that small moment I mentioned with Lois and Jordan, where she kind of looks like she realizes she went over a line and she's snapping at her kids. That's why I like that moment so much, is because it's not telling me that, it's just showing me that. So I see it on her face, and I'm like, okay, that felt like a real moment. That felt like a real character moment, as opposed to her just snapping anytime Clark tries to bring anything up. Which it just, it feels like the dials went up to 11 without us like going through the story, and it feels disingenuous. So, like, and it's not that you can't like have a time skip and like then introduce like where we are now, but I don't know if this episode like accomplishes like how it's supposed to be done in any way. So it's, yeah, it was a frustrating episode, honestly. So hopefully episode 2 feels back a bit more to the magic of season 1. Not looking forward to Jordan and Sarah right now, which is a shame because they were one of my favorite things about season 1, but we'll see how that plays out. But it kind of feels like we have to do, awkwardness between them. Possibly she met someone while away, maybe we have to break them up, but then they'll get back together again later, and we have to do all these things because that's just how network TV specifically likes to write relationships by and large. And they're not going to necessarily break up Lois and Clark. It would be a pretty big deal if they did that at some point. And they're probably not going to break up Lana and Kyle now. After, if they survive that season 1 plot, they're probably good for a while. So Jordan and Sarah is where we're going to do it. But unfortunately, that's where we're going to feel most of the tropes if indeed they go down that path. So we'll see. We'll see how they handle it. But yeah, let me know what you thought of the premiere in the comments. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, all that stuff. It helps out a lot if you do. Of course, you can support us over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and help keep all the content coming. But otherwise, that is me. So thank you once again for watching or listening. Always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?